Hey, this is Hutch with bankingtruths.com, and I have some really exciting news today. There's a brand new whole life product that just came out yesterday that is ideal for infinite banking. So we're going over the numbers. I'm going to share some preliminary numbers on this video. I am not feeling well, but I wanted to get the news out while it's hot and fresh for you. So you're going to see our typical analysis comparing it to other carriers at the end of this video. And I'm also first going to go over component by component, rider by rider, what they did to enhance this product to make it ideal for infinite banking. If you've been on the fence, there's been no better time than now. You're not getting any younger. Most people aren't getting healthier. Definitely book your own custom consultation so you can see your own numbers, how it looks with this new product in comparison to the best competitors. So with that, let's get into the details. Now, you probably recognize this imagery from my video where I explain the interplay of whole life's different growth components and riders using a race car analogy. If you haven't seen it and you're confused about term riders, PUAs, dividends, how it all connects to each other, definitely check out the video. Now, we're going to start with dividends. People think this is the most important part of a whole life policy. It's actually not. Now, it is important, and thankfully, the new product, which is by Penn Mutual, is coming out with an early announcement that they're raising their dividends. Usually the announcements happen more towards November, but since they're launching this new product now, they went ahead and said, we're going to go ahead and raise our dividend, not just on this new policy, on all prior whole life policies from 5.7 to 6. Now, people make the mistake of comparing these numbers like apples to apples. It's not like it doesn't work. So 5.75 with Penn was one of the lowest dividend rates, yet they were the best long-term performer because you can't compare their 5.75 to somebody else's 6. Well, now that they're 6, it's obviously going to be better than they were at 5.75, and that has to do with the other ingredients of the car. And probably the most important and overlooked factor of the car is the base policy. So people erroneously think that like base is a necessary evil, it's bad, and it's true that that's where most of the expenses, the fees, the charges, the commissions are based mainly off how much base policy is there. However, the part that people miss is the base policy. That is your underlying growth engine that is going to drive the performance of the whole car for a couple reasons. One is every whole life policy, the guaranteed cash value has to equal the death benefit by life expectancy. And every time you got one of the prior dividends and you roll it back into the policy, that is going to climb that guaranteed cash value curve. So the base policy is extremely important. When we look at this heat map of the various whole life carriers that offer whole life, and we just isolate base policy for $1 million policy, most people wouldn't do this for infinite banking. They're going to add term riders. They're going to add lots of overfunding. This is just pure base policy for 20 years and then stopping to see how things do. You can see that Penn is leaps and bounds better than the other carriers. Dark green being the best, light green the next best, then yellow, then red, and so on. And there's a lot of room to be wrong. It's true that they did just raise their dividend and other carriers may or may not, but it's hard to imagine a universe where they're going to be able to raise their dividend to beat Penn just on a pure basis. That sounds kind of weird, but that's what it is. And Penn's always had the strongest base policy as well as PUAs. And this is a good dovetail to talk about PUAs because PUAs are really just a smaller microcosm of the base policy. Or put another way, they are turbochargers that you can add to the base policy. A PUA is, as it states, just a paid up addition. So it's really a one pay. So instead of the base being a 20 pay, we're just paying the whole thing up, just front loading into a one pay for these little microcosm of the base policy. Now, we don't have the numbers for the 1 pays yet, but Penn did put out the numbers for the 10 pays, where it's more of a front-loaded design. It's still just a base 10 pay, but you can see again that Penn is shining over and above the competition. In fact, you don't see a lot of green there at all, just Penn's dark green. And so that trend will likely continue. We're going to do further tests later, where if you actually put it into a 1 pay, it's going to be the strongest performance. Now, Now, when you overfund and add these PUAs to your policy, there is a one-time fee or cost of insurance that it's one and done. The thing's fully paid up and it's stripped of any charges, and it is just a growth machine that not only has to equal the mini death benefit that you just bought on a guaranteed basis, but adding those PUAs, adding extra cash value, adding extra permanent death benefit also increases your share of future dividend pools. Now, Penn used to have one of the most efficient PUA loads, those one-time charges. They raised them for the last couple of years because they were already kind of giving away the farm. Well, they just re-lowered them and are now again some of the most competitive PUA loads, which means more of your overfunding dollars goes straight to growth, straight to increasing your guaranteed cash value, and straight to increasing your cut of future dividend pools. PUAs are your turbocharger for whole life, and in order to fit a lot of PUAs, you need a term rider. With my race car analogy, is the titanium chassis that allows you to disproportionately stack PUAs. Now, Penn, because their base policy is so strong, have not allowed generally as much term as other carriers have in the past. And that's still the case, but they did double the amount of term you could add on. And so again, going back to the ingredients being the most important thing, when you already have stronger, more efficient engines to put these fuel additives of the dividends in, you don't need quite as much of them to outperform a car that allows you to stack a lot of PUAs, but the PUAs just aren't naturally as powerful. As you can see again in just the 10-pay version, they're just not as strong. So even though you can put more in it, you need to do it and you're still underperforming. That's how it's been looked in the past, and that's what we're probably going to see now. Lastly, I just want to talk, before we get to the numbers, I want to talk about mutual company being your pit crew. So Penn is a true mutual company, meaning they're not a mutual holding company. There is a distinction between mutual company and mutual holding company. A mutual holding company is still owned 100% by their policyholders, but they've reorged the structure in a way where it is actually technically a stock company. It's just stock that's wholly owned still by their policyholders. But really, a mutual holding company is just taking a step closer to demutualization, as we saw Ohio National did before COVID, to the detriment of their policyholders. And Penn is a true mutual company like Mass Mutual, like New York Life, like Guardian, like Northwestern Mutual, Lafayette, and One America. Good companies. They offer whole life. They're still owned by their policyholders, but they are mutual holding companies, which, although that doesn't mean anything right now at this moment, again, they did take a step closer towards not being a true mutual forever. Penn is the second oldest mutual company, second only to New York Life. And so remember, when you're buying whole life, as the product states, you want these promises to endure, again, for your whole life. So with that, let's jump into the analysis and see how they stack up. All right, so again, we do plan to do a deeper dive, but I wanted to get you some numbers quick, dirty, early. So we're going to look at this male age 37, second best rating, preferred rating. We're going to do $50,000 a premium per year for 7 years. And I realize people always go, oh my gosh, I can't afford that. It's not about that. It's about the ratio. So if you can do $5,000 a year, great. Divide all these numbers by 10 and it'll be right about that. If you can do $25,000 a year, divide it by 2, and so on and so forth. It's about the ratio. So if we compare the old Penn in the olive drab to the new Penn in the bright green, you can see from year one, the cash value is significantly higher. And then every year that goes forward, because of the power of compounding and these new enhancements, the new Penn is just destroying. Now, if we add another carrier, Mass Mutual, awesome company. We love Mass Mutual. Big 800-pound gorilla, old mutual company, true mutual. Their flagship product, the 10-pay, used to have, call it the best blend of, call it early cash value and long-term performance, where they would beat Penn in the early years like they do here, but not by that much anymore. And then in the long term, they would fall behind, but it would take a while. Well, you can see that Penn is pulling ahead sooner and pulling away farther. Now, I do want to say that this is showing that Penn has raised their dividend. It wouldn't surprise me at all if Mass raised their dividend. I do just want to show you for just a moment, if we compare the old dividend of Penn to Mass. So this is Penn's new product in the bright green with the old dividend, just trying to make it more apples to apples, the story still holds where Mass is ahead in the early years, but then Penn pulls ahead, and they pull ahead vastly, just not quite as quick and not quite as far because of the dividend disparity. But I wanted you to see this to make so you know. Now, let's just look at this old dividend again to look at Lafayette, because Lafayette Life has been the company where you get the highest early performance, and you can see that in bold. Whenever it's bold, it means it's beating everybody. It's number one, and it's in the category for those years. And Lafayette has always allowed you to blend the most term rider. But again, as you saw when we looked at the base numbers, their base ingredients and therefore their PUAs just aren't as robust as a Penn or a Mass. And so what happens is Penn and the power of those quality ingredients does pull ahead, and then starts pulling ahead drastically from Lafayette, as does Mass Mutual. Now, if we open up things to include Guardian, New York Life, and One America, two true mutuals with Guardian, New York Life, and a mutual holding company, you can see that there's no bold anywhere. It doesn't make them bad products. They have quality products, but they never were a standout in terms of early cash or long-term performance. And again, this is at the old dividend, meaning we haven't raise Penn's dividend yet, even though they have, just to kind of equalize apples to apples everything. You can see that Penn is now very competitive from an early cash value standpoint, meaning, you know, the difference between 41 or 45,000 in year one isn't going to make and break your endeavors. And a lot of people, most of my clients, would rather sacrifice that little bit of early cash in the early years, knowing that they're going to get this better long-term performance in the long haul. And part of why you get that, if you remember, it has to do with the base policy and PUAs, in that the cash value has to equal the death benefit by life expectancy. So even though most people concerned about infinite banking say they don't care about the death benefit, it is important, especially the long-term death benefit. So when we see all the carriers stacked up in terms of death benefit, this is the same 37-year-old. This is the old dividend on that new Penn product in bright green. You can see that One America is actually ahead for the first 4 years in terms of death benefit, Lafayette for the next 6. Now, for all of these carriers during the first 10 years or so, we are looking at mostly term rider. It's not until year 11 where all the death benefit you see is whatever permanent death benefit is there. And so you can see Penn is way ahead of the game. And even though you may not care that much about the death benefit, that is what causes that reverse gravity of the guaranteed cash value that pulls the guaranteed cash value up. Also, your dividend pool, your cut of the dividend pool, it matters how much cash value you have, but also how much permanent death benefit you have. And so these numbers are really good. And again, this is the old dividend. If I just show you the same numbers, so the only thing that's going to change is Penn. With the new dividend, you can see that things are even better long-term. And I realize all of this is a lot of information. There is more to come, but I will say people learn best through their own numbers. And even those concepts of the race car, it starts to make sense when people see it crystallize in their own numbers. And this case study that you're looking at for a 37-year-old, we are willing to do the same for your age, your health rating, however much premium you plan to pay for how long. And that is actually the best way to learn. If you've been on the fence about infinite banking, well, again, there's been no better time than now. When's the best time to plant an oak tree? 20 years ago. When's the next best time? 5 years ago. When's the next best time? Now, especially with this new product, especially with the economic sands shifting, there's going to be generational buying opportunities. Prevailing rates are coming down, which means loan rates should be coming down. Meanwhile, these dividend raises are occurring because whole life has been absorbing these higher rates for the last few years, and they're now passing that on to policyholders. So if you haven't already, book your own custom call at bankingtruths.com schedule, and we will do this. We will walk you through this learning process through your own numbers so you can get the ideal banking policy for your situation and learn about how all this works. So I hope this helps, and we hope to talk to you soon.